Hello, everybody, and welcome to this second International Mindful Eating Celebration Day. Thank you for being here. And I would like to first introduce Cinzia Pezzolesi. She has been a wonderful help preparing this Mindful Eating Day. Cinzia is a clinical psychologist and a mindfulness-based cognitive therapist. She's also a senior lecturer on mental health and well-being. She's a qualified mindfulness teacher at the University of Bangor, and she's trained in mindful eating in Boston, US. And now she is directing a clinic. She's the director of a clinical mindfulness project, which is based in London. Hello, Cinzia.
Hello, Cuca. Nice to see you again.
It's great to be with you here. Cinzia has suggested that we could have some minutes to center and gather together. So if you would like to take us through that.
Absolutely. So again, hello, everyone. Let's start this session today by closing our eyes, if that feels right. And taking a couple of deeper breaths. As we exhale, allowing our bellies to relax as best as we can. And really acknowledging that we're taking time today to nourish our mindful eating practice. So see whether we can perhaps smile internally, lifting the inner corners of our mouth. As we are sitting here, having a sense of the whole body, perhaps feeling the feet on the floor, and noticing the parts of the body that are in contact with the chair, the back of the legs, the pelvic area. Feeling the shoulders. And allowing our face to relax. So letting go of any tension that might be present around the forehead or the jaw. And if that feels right, setting an intention for the day, for this special mindful eating day. So the intention could be to be open, curious, present, whatever feels right in this moment. And allowing this intention to sink from the head all the way to your heart. Allowing the awareness to settle with the breath for a few moments. Really dropping in our bodies. Feeling the breath moving in and out. And then exhale, zooming out the awareness to the rest of the body, feeling the boundaries of the body and the skin in contact with the air. And when you're ready, gently bring this practice to a close and open your eyes. Thank you. Cuca, I think you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I am. Thank you. I said that that was really needed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So before sharing all the activities that we have prepared for you today, we would like to thank the Mindful Eating team, Lynn and Fiona, who's been feeding us on Facebook with wonderful motivational messages, and also Michelle, who is on the back right now. So there's a lot of people who's been involved organizing this day, and we would like to thank you, all of them. And also don't forget that we have another encounter today at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, with more interviews and a little bit different messages from other TCME board members. So why don't we start introducing the interview we have prepared with Marsha, our president, regarding this day today. Would you be okay with that?
I'm up for it.
Okay.
Let's get started. Hi everyone, and welcome to the second International Mindful Eating Day. We are here with Marsha Hudnall. She's the president of TCME. She's been in the field of mindful eating for 30 years, so she's been a voice and a thought leader for a long time. She's also the president and co-owner of Green Mountain, a fox run. Welcome, Marsha.
Thanks, Cinzia. It's really lovely to be here today to talk about International Mindful Eating Day.
We're so excited. So what are the key themes for this year, Marsha?
Well, I think I wanted to just briefly talk really why International Mindful Eating Day was started. We debuted it last year, the Center for Mindful Eating did, and it really was and is an effort to really spread the message of mindful eating. There are so many people today who struggle with eating and their relationship with food, and it truly does represent a tremendous degree of suffering for so many people, and mindful eating really does help or offer a way out of that struggle, to develop a relationship with food that really does help a person learn how to nurture themselves with what is one of the most essential things for our survival. We need food to live. And so with mindful eating, we can learn how to use it for that, both in a physical way as well as a psychological way, because there is more to food than just the vitamins and minerals and those sorts of things that comprise it. It really is a very central part of our lives, and that's what mindful eating helps us connect with. So that's really what Mindful Eating Day is about, is to try to help people connect with that better and consider bringing it into their lives.
Great, that's absolutely true. And is there any particular topic that we're addressing this year?
Well, we do have some main messages, and there are 4 of them. And the first one, it sort of gets to what I was just talking to, and it's about healing that relationship with food. So I don't know that I need to go into a whole lot more depth than that, but it really is about being kind to ourselves and being open as we come into that relationship with food and make choices, and be open to understanding why we make choices and how they make us feel, all these sorts of things. And so if we are more open, instead of reverting back to these negative types of experiences that many of us have had around food, it can really help us heal that relationship.
Great. Thank you, Marsha. And from your
You want me to
personal
go in? Go ahead.
So from your personal point of view, I'm wondering, is there any key message that you would like to say to the people who are listening to this interview?
Well, actually, I work with many, many people who struggle around eating on a regular basis. And so, again, I think what we're talking about here is helping people really embrace the nurturing aspect of food, you know, really what it represents in our lives. And there are a few other messages that are really important here too, that among those key messages that we have for Mindful Eating Day. And I mentioned the first one was heal your relationship with food, but the second one was compassionate curiosity helps you become more present. And that's a little bit about that idea of being open again and being able to look at things and go, what's going on here? Why am I making this choice? Is it a good choice for me? Is it something that's going to support me in whatever it is that I'm doing, whether it be to manage hunger or manage emotions or the different roles that food plays in our lives. So being open and curious. Respectful care in the present moment is also one of the key message, and that issue of respect is so important because it really is about respecting yourself and honoring yourself and honoring the fact that we do have an internal wisdom that can guide us if we are open to it, and try to get rid of all that noise out there in the world that's telling us what we're supposed to be doing, but very often doesn't match what it is that we need to do for ourselves. So respect and honoring ourselves is a really big important part of that. And then finally, nourishing mindful eating with joy is the final key message. And I love one of the quotes from Ellen Satter, who is a leader in moving away from the whole diet mentality approach that really has consumed so many people for over 60 years now. And she says that when the joy goes out of eating, nutrition suffers. And that is so true because, again, nutrition, good nutrition is not just vitamins and minerals. It is about how we feel as we're eating. And that really does help us process the food that we eat better. If we actually are eating very healthy, you know, foods that really have a high nutrient content, if we're stressed about it when we're doing it, we're not going to really get the maximum benefit from those foods. So, you know, bringing in this idea of pleasure and enjoyment while we're eating is really critical to getting, you know, the max out of what the eating experience. And certainly it adds a great deal of pleasure to it. And I once saw, well, it's actually become my motto. Have you ever heard of yogi tea? You may not have it in,
yes.
You have yogi tea, you know, they have those little bag tags. And I love reading the tags, and one that I've just like adopted, it says the purpose in life is to enjoy every moment. And I just love it, you know, because if you can adopt that as your motto, it can carry you through in a good way through a lot of the ups and downs of life, and certainly when it comes to eating. So my message would be that I hope the world can come to the practice of mindful eating, understanding what it has to offer and how it can really help you in living the life that you want to live. It can really support you in doing what it is that you want to do in your life. And it doesn't have to be the central practice. It's one that is, or the central focus of your life. Although, you know, in the beginning you need to pay attention more because you're learning something new. But in the end, it becomes just the way that you do things, and it's natural, and it's easy, and it feels good. And what could be better than that?
You're completely right. Thank you so much, Marsha, and I'm sure everyone enjoyed this time together, and will enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you. Bye, Marsha.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Cinzia. And everyone else.
I do like the message of pleasure and enjoyment. I do feel it's so important when we eat. I don't know, Cuca, when you work with your clients, I often get people who say, I'm never full, so I eat all day. And I think what they mean in the end is they're not satisfied. And when they actually find and discover joy with their eating, that problem goes. So I really love this message. It's one of the things that Marsha always says, and I think is absolutely essential.
It is. And one of the things I like very much as well was looking at her face. I mean, she does speak so much, you know, there's so much joy in her eyes when she talks about mindful eating. So that's another key thing. I mean, she definitely embodies the spirit.
Great. Cuca, shall we move on to the next video?
Excellent.
Yeah. So we do have Judson Brewer, and he will be talking about healing your relationship with food. Enjoy it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second edition of the Mindful Eating Day. We are delighted to have here Judson Brewer. Hello, Judson. How are you?
Good. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So Judson is an addiction psychiatrist. He's the director of research at the Center for Mindfulness, and his TED Talk is on eating and habit change, and was the fourth most viewed TED Talk. So now he has about 6 million visits to the website, and we're so excited to hear what is coming. So your interview on healing your relationship with food. But before I do that, I want to mention that a very exciting news. So your new book is coming out in March. It's called The Craving Mind, and is now available on Amazon to pre-order. So welcome, Judson.
Thank you.
So the first question that I have for you is, so we're talking today about healing your relationship with food. So what does go wrong with food usually in your experience? What do you see in your practice?
What goes wrong with food? Well, there are so many things that can go wrong with food. It's really interesting because I started approaching this from both a personal practice standpoint and then an addiction research standpoint. And it's just been so rich to look at all of these things together. And what seems to be the case is that we learned, so there's a very basic learning process that got set up for us as a way to remember where food is. And, you know, the basic process is basically, you know, trigger, behavior, reward, which I talked a little bit about in my TED Talk, where, you know, we see some food, we eat it, and then it tastes good, so we learn to go back and find it again. We remember where it is. But our brains they're more evolved than that now. And so we start thinking, you know, our brain says, well, why don't you, you know, if this makes you feel good, why don't you eat something good when you feel bad? And so our emotional systems have started to take this same reward-based learning process and kind of co-opted them or you know, stolen them so that we learn to start eating when we're sad or when we're bored and when we're stressed out. So that's just one thing that can go wrong with eating, but that basic process underlies many of the ways that eating goes awry.
Okay. And so is it really possible to change this relationship that we learn, basically, the one you just said?
The good news is, if this is a learning process that we all have, it's a learning process. It's not something that's stuck forever. And so if we can understand how it works, we can even use it in itself to break out of our bad habits and into good ones. So if the old trigger behavior reward process is stress, eat, feel a little bit better, we can actually tap into that same process. So if stress is the trigger, if our behavior becomes pay attention or even get curious or fascinated about, oh, what does this craving feel like in my body? Then that new reward comes in, which is that reward of letting go. With curiosity, we let go of having to have something. We're just drawn in naturally to, oh, look, this feels like this feels like this feels like this. So we can use that same learning process and replace the eating behavior with curiosity, for example, or awareness. And that leads to a new reward, an intrinsic reward rather than an extrinsic reward where we need to get something to feel better. Does that make sense?
Oh, completely. So fascinating. And I'm wondering, how long does it take then to establish a new pathway in your brain?
That is a great question that nobody really has a good answer to. So if I said, here's the answer, I'd be lying to you. What I can say is that we know, and there are a lot of myths out there like, it takes 21 days to change a habit, it takes 6 weeks. It's probably less 21 days and more 6 weeks. But what I can say is it's very individual. So in our Eat Right Now program, we've had people who learn this, they really dive into the program and they start really paying attention to every time they eat. And they already start to regroove their brains within a couple of days because they're saying, I can notice every single time I'm caught up in the habit loop. So they've already retrained something within a couple of days. So I think it's more quality rather than quantity that matters here. So it's not how long, it's how much quality is there and how much, how many short moments am I bringing awareness to my eating throughout the day. I love this phrase, short moments many times, where if we have a short moment of mindfulness every time we have an urge to eat or every time we're eating, if we bring awareness to every time we eat throughout the day or even think about eating, think of all of the times that we start to groove that new pathway, and these pathways start to get set up pretty quickly from there.
Oh, that's wonderful. So from your experience, imagine if I had to start this process of change, if I want to start healing my relationship with food, what are your top tips? Where do I start?
So it's interesting because in the West, if you think of meditation practice, for example, in the West, often meditation is taught first before some of the core practices. And in the East, they're like, no, start with simple things that you can really nail. And so I would say, one of the tips, the way that we think about this as people go through our program is there are 3 gears. So if you're driving a car or riding a bicycle, you have to get into your first gear to get going. And that first gear is simply recognizing a habit loop. So that's the first tip I would give, is just notice when there's a trigger, notice when you're about to stress eat, and notice what you get from that, okay? So just recognizing the habit loop, we're already aware, we're already out of it a little bit. We're not sucked into it as much because we're being aware. So that's the first tip I would give. Now here's a paradoxical tip. So sometimes this seems a little strange, but we found with our smoking cessation programs that when we tell people to smoke mindfully, they realize that smoking doesn't actually taste very good and they get disenchanted with it. So that gives the momentum to be able to change their behavior. We started playing with it as we were piloting out the Eat Right Now program and found that the same thing was true with eating, but eating has a trick because we don't have to smoke to survive, but we do have to eat, right? If you stop eating, that's going to be a problem pretty quickly. So what we suggest to people, and this fits beautifully with mindful eating, is, well, just pay attention when you eat. It seems simple, but there are a lot of times where our brains have tricked us into thinking that it feels good to overeat. When I've worked with people with binge eating disorder, for example, a lot of my patients have said, I eat to numb myself, right? To not have those, whatever my negative thoughts are going in my head. I found that if I eat, I can stuff myself, and then I'm not paying attention to those thoughts. So there's this idea that, oh, eating feels good, and we say, well, if eating feels so good, just eat and notice what it feels like and really pay attention when you do. See if you're full, see what it feels like when you overeat and all this stuff. And So that's tip number 2, is just pay attention when you eat and see when you're actually full, right? So it can take a while for these satiety signals to hit our brain. So eat mindfully. You know, you don't have to necessarily eat at a snail's pace, but you know, don't shove it down quickly. And then give yourself time to really let that register. What that helps people do, and we've seen this a lot in our program, is they start to realize, one, that you know, well-prepared food that's not junk food actually tastes better than, you know, junk food, and that they can naturally start to slow down and stop eating before they're overfull, right? So this is the disenchantment aspect. We think of this as gear 2. What are the actual rewards you're getting when you're overeating, when you're stress eating, when you're eating when you're bored, when you're eating when you're sad? And they can start to recalibrate their brains to see, oh, this isn't actually as rewarding as I thought. So that's second gear. Once they build that momentum, that helps them shift into third gear, which is the ability to ride out these emotionally driven cravings. So, you know, there are lots of mindfulness exercises and tools that can be used to help people ride out cravings. We've found in our program the RAIN acronym, which many people are familiar with, you know, recognize, allow, investigate. So get really curious about what that craving feels like in our bodies. But the N, we've substituted note. So just note each moment what the sensation is. Is it tightness? Is it tension? Is it burning? So that instead of being identified and caught up in the craving, we can just notice them and have those cravings just come up and go away. So that's third gear. And what we find is a lot of people are trying to shift from first to third gear very quickly. You know, they're like, oh, I can recognize my habit loop. Now I'm just going to think my way through this. I know the RAIN acronym and I'm just going to nail it. Well, we can't think our way through cravings, right? We get tired. You know, our prefrontal cortices go offline. It just doesn't work. So this is where second gear is really critical. So the fourth tip I would give, beside these 3 gears, is don't try to shift from first to third gear too quickly. You're going to, you know, the car is going to stall.
Wow. Great. That's really wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today, Judson, and we look forward to hearing more from you soon. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Really wonderful. One of the things that I really remember from this talk is like when he mentioned in the East, they start first with meditation and then with the tips. And we seem to be more driven into action here. We won't tell me how to do it when really mindfulness is a key thing in mindful eating, isn't it?
Indeed. A concept for me that is really interesting is the concept of disenchantment. So we do think sometimes that we like something, and there is a fine line between enjoying something and then the same food can become something that makes us really unhappy and triggers a lot of negative thoughts or self-criticism. So this concept of being disenchanted, it really works well. Since I've heard it, I mentioned to a few people, and if you really pay attention, if you're really mindful, you will notice that the food that you have been using to feel better, to kind of get relief from a negative emotional state, is not doing that job so well. So you can be disenchanted, and I absolutely love it. I'm
and there's one.
enchanted.
Yes, we are all. He was actually very energetic as well, talking about it. He's getting to love so much mindful eating. So
Yeah.
there was one thing that he mentioned was curiosity. No, let's stop and investigate with curiosity, and that gives me the opportunity to introduce the next interview with Caroline Baerten. She's going to talk to us about compassionate curiosity. So shall we go into it? Okay.
Let's go.
Let's go for that one. Hello, everybody. We are here to interview Caroline Baerten as part of the second International Mindful Eating Day that the Center of Mindful Eating is organizing. Caroline Baerten, she's the Vice President of the Center of Mindful Eating. Thank you so much, Caroline, for being here with us today. It's an honor for us to get to know you a little bit better. Before interviewing her, I'd like you to have a little bit of background about Caroline. She's the founder of MENU in the Center of Mindful Eating and Nutrition in the heart of Europe, Brussels. She works as a mindfulness-based nutritionist and researcher, and integrative psychotherapy is also, and she's also a qualified chef. She's the first certified mindful eating conscious living teacher worldwide and offers additionally mindfulness-based stress reductions and mindfulness self-compassion courses to her clients. Since 2012, she has created an international platform of mindful eating teachers in Europe, and in her institute, mindful eating trainings programs are facilitated for European healthcare professionals, and mentoring in mindful eating is offered throughout e-coaching. And she's part of several projects where the impact in mindful eating have on health, well-being, ecology, and also studies. So hello, Caroline. How are you doing today?
Oh, wonderful. It's lovely to see you, Cuca. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for this time. You know, we are celebrating today the second International Mindful Eating Day, and the theme for this Mindful Eating Day is Nourishing the Mindful Eating Practice. And part of that is compassionate curiosity. You being a teacher of compassion and also portraying or embodying compassion yourself, can you please tell us a little bit more, what is compassionate curiosity?
I love this word, compassionate curiosity, and it's something I use very often in the mindful eating courses I offer. And how I see it is there are two words, there's compassion and there's curiosity. And actually compassion and curiosity are two qualities. They address two different aspects. If you look at curiosity, curiosity is in a way something more mental. It's you bring your attention towards something, and the quality you use if you pay attention to something, food on your plate, for example, your thoughts or your emotions or physical sensations, you can do it in an open way, with openness, with curiosity. You want to learn, you want to understand what is going on. Or you can, if you do it in the opposite way, you can do it, you can pay attention in a more judgmental way, and that's closed. You're actually not really interested in what is really going on. So curiosity has to do with openness, allowing what is there. And then if you look at compassion, compassion is another quality, another way of paying attention or noticing what is going on. And compassion is a heart quality. It's something that happens in the heart. Instead of curiosity, it's more mind activity. So the heart opens up if we come in contact with an object, if we come in contact with our own experiences, physical experience or emotional experiences. And compassion is if we look into the Buddhist scriptures, compassion is one of the 4 heart qualities. The first one is kindness, and kindness is more like a general aspect. We can come in contact with something, what is going on, in a kind way. And compassion is when there is suffering, and then our heart wants to relieve that suffering. So, and the third quality that we can identify is joy. We can also come in contact with food or with ourselves or with another person in a joyful way. And the third heart quality that the Buddhist scriptures learn us is equanimity. So there is stillness in the heart. We are in balance.
And they all seem to be very linked to each other, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We all need them.
Yeah. So how can compassionate curiosity help us with our mindful eating practice?
Yes, that's a good question. And in the center I'm running, I see on a daily basis a lot of patients and clients, and they're suffering. They're suffering in their relationship with food and eating. And the first thing I learned them is just to allow what is there. And that's already a challenge, because most people have a very judgmental, very critical relationship with themselves, but also with food. There's good food, there's bad food, there's healthy food, there's unhealthy food. So this kind of dualistic thinking is very much present. So if you can bring the quality of curiosity into our experience with food and our experience with our thoughts and emotions and physical sensations, the body, then already there is an aspect of equanimity into play. And the next step is then opening up the heart, so the heart has a chance. We are actually, through curiosity, setting the condition for compassion. If there is no acceptance, even a slight acceptance of what is going on, compassion has never the opportunity to arise. So compassion could almost say, is the next step. And compassion is basically addressing not only the experience, what is going on, but more the experiencer, the person who observes what is going on. If, for example, the critical voice is talking and saying, this is good, this is bad, or you look ugly, you're not good enough, etc., then compassion has a very important role to play, because the experiencer, the person who is attacked by the critical voice, even if it is your own critical voice, is suffering. So compassion is necessary at that very moment.
Yes. And can you tell us how can we bring compassionate curiosity into our table?
Well, curiosity is basically asking yourself, what is going on? What do I notice at this very moment? And what do I notice with my senses? What do I see? What do I smell? What do I taste in the mouth? What kind of textures are there? Or are there thoughts? Are there feelings? What do I experience in my body? So curiosity helps us to ask questions. And curiosity is a way to return to the present moment. Because if you're eating on automatic pilot, then your mind is somewhere else. We are thinking about the past, or we are thinking about the future. If you think about the future, then there's a chance we are setting the conditions that fear and anxiety can arise. If you think about the past, we might set the conditions that depression can arise, or grief, or sorrow. So if we can ask ourselves, at this very moment, what is going on? What do I notice with my senses? We are in the present moment, we are here and now. And then we also have the opportunity to bring change in our life, to break the chains of the automatic pilot, to step out of this judgmental, critical thinking. And we set the conditions for joy, we set the conditions for happiness, we set the conditions basically for freedom, because that is the purpose of mindfulness and mindful eating, to become free. And if you look at compassion, as I said before, it's not only observing and noticing what is experienced, what am I experiencing, what am I noticing, but also what is the observer experiencing? How do I feel at this very moment? And so it is observing what is going on with kindness. And if there is suffering in that situation, we can also cultivate the quality of compassion and acknowledging, oh, this is suffering, or this is stress, or this hurts, and then also realize that we're all human beings, and this is part of, you know, our human existence, and that maybe a lot of people at that very moment are experiencing similar things, or that, you know, other people have experienced what I'm experiencing at that very moment. So realizing that we're not alone in that experience. So I see bringing compassionate curiosity to the table is basically loving what there is. It's embracing, it's surrendering in that very moment.
Thank you so much. It's so important what you are sharing with us right now. Just to finish, Caroline, one personal tip from your own experience that you can give us to put compassionate curiosity in mind, but from your personal experience.
Yeah, well, for me, it's a bit like a mantra, and it's basically stopping, landing, responding. And it's very simple. I just try to bring simplicity in my life, and maybe that's what we all need in our society, to bring more simplicity. So stopping for a moment, and that means stepping out of the past, stepping out of the future, and then landing in this very moment, in this present moment. And that means returning to the body, returning to the breathing, and just feeling the comfort. Oh, there is, even in this stressful moment, there is still the breath, there is still a heartbeat, I'm alive. And then noticing with curiosity, what kind of thoughts are going on? What kind of feelings do I notice? And then we have also I noticed that then I have the freedom to respond with kindness, or with compassion, or with joy, or with equanimity, whatever is needed. And or I can respond with a good sense of humor, and that's also a way to counteract frustration or anger. Or I can respond with gratitude as an antidote for judgmental thinking. So it's stopping, landing in this very moment in the body, and then responding in whatever way is possible.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your wisdom, for your compassionate words. It's a very important ingredient in mindful eating, is compassionate curiosity. So thank you as well for your work and for the Center for Mindful Eating. The word that resonates in my mind right now is freedom. She was associating compassion, embracing even the suffering, with freedom, and I think it's very powerful.
Yes, and can we be a little kinder, a little more curious? I also like the gentle invitation and the inquiry when there is suffering. So that's and what I'm noticing as well, how strong it is, the mindfulness element again. So that being there, opening up, and you can certainly do that if you're present. So the interlink between mindfulness and eating mindfully is so strong. It's just lovely to hear different people that basically touching around this concept.
Okay. And at the end of the day, we can see that everything is interrelated. Really, one concept builds on the other one. We would like to share with you now an interview that we have with Lynn Rossy. Lynn and Caroline were opening last week a foundational series for professionals with sharing good practice guidelines for teachers and for lay people. Good practice guidelines, well, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but a full program is available on our TCME, and it's very important, not just for us, for professionals to understand and be guided by those, but also for lay people. When you're looking for somebody who, a teacher or a facilitator of mindful eating, just notice, is that person, I mean, what's the qualification, not just the qualification, but the practice, the mindfulness practice, etc. So shall we go ahead and share that one interview now?
Hello, everybody. This is Claudia Vega from the Center for Mindful Eating. And today I have the privilege of interviewing Lynn Rossy. Lynn Rossy is also a board member of the Center for Mindful Eating. She's an author. She just published last year her book, The Mindfulness-Based Eating Solution. She is also an MBSR certified teacher, and she has developed the program Eat for Life, which is also a program of mindful eating. She's a psychologist, and she's a wonderful human being. And I'm very, very honored to be in front of you, Lynn, in this moment, having this opportunity to interview you. And in the celebration of the International Mindful Eating Day, we would like to inform the people that are listening to us about all the things that are happening in the Center for Mindful Eating. We are celebrating 10 years of this organization, and many things have happened since its foundation 10 years ago. And while knowing that our mission is to help people heal their relationship with food, to achieve a balanced, respectful, healthy, and joyful relationship with food, part of the mission of the Center for Mindful Eating is also to bring information and provide training for professionals and also for individuals to inform them what mindful eating is all about. So in that sense, the TCME has recently developed the Foundations of Mindful Eating webinar series. And our first webinar in this series was about the good practice guidelines that were also developed by the TCME. And yesterday, you and Caroline Baerten had this wonderful webinar that I had the opportunity to attend. But unfortunately, some people didn't have the chance. So I would like to ask you, Lynn, to please inform us, share with us, what are the good practice guidelines? Why were they developed? What are they for? If you please share with us.
Great, thank you, Claudia. So nice to be here today and to celebrate Mindful Eating Day. This is awesome. This is our second time, right?
Yes.
So the good practice guidelines were developed over a course of many years, actually, and many, many hours of discussion by board members in the hopes that we can further the practice of mindful eating in a way that maintains our professionalism. We are an organization that's mainly brought together to help professionals become good at teaching mindful eating. So people were asking, we had a lot of professionals that were asking, how do we guide ourselves, and we didn't really have any good answers until we finally developed the good practice guidelines. These guidelines are aspirational in nature. They're guiding professionals on a path to become more professional in their practices, in the intent that we really are concerned about patient safety. Certainly people can teach things, but they may not be qualified, and so this is a way of helping people to know, both lay people and professionals, what is a professional mindful eating teacher, what are the qualifications that they should have, so that you're really getting a quality service. We want to relieve suffering. We don't want to add to suffering. We want to have patient safety, and certainly people need to be qualified in what they're teaching. So we wanted to help people know what that would look like. We came up with 3 sets of guidelines. One of them is for the mindful eating teacher. And when we're talking about mindful eating teachers, we're really talking about teachers that are teaching programs that are, go over a period of 8 to 10 weeks at least, right? An in-person program might be 8 to 10 weeks. Online programs might be even a little bit longer than that. But these are mindful eating teachers that are teaching group programs to individuals over a period of time. So we have guidelines for those. And then we have guidelines for what are what's a mindful eating teacher training? So what are these trainings that professionals can go through? What are the characteristics of those trainings that people can go through in order to be a mindful eating teacher? And then the third one that we came up with is the mindful eating teacher trainers. So who are the teachers that are training the teachers? I know that sounds really confusing, but it's all on our website, and you can find those guidelines. I hope that they're clear. Of course, if you ever have any questions, you can email us. But all 3 of those training guidelines are on our website now.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, then these guidelines were created to send a message of what a good practice would be like, what to look in a mindful eating teacher. I mean, in case that I'm an individual that wants to learn about this practice, what would be a qualified or a good mindful eating teacher, and also what are the programs out there if I'm a professional and I would like to be trained so that I can share this with my clients or my patients. That's correct?
Yeah, so you can look at the guidelines, and if you're looking at a particular program that says, I'm going to teach you mindful eating, does it meet the guidelines that we have on our website? Because we don't really have a listing of courses. We talk about some of them in our webinar that we did yesterday, the Good Practice Guidelines webinar, which people can access. But we don't really have a listing of those on our website. But you can have the guidelines and say, well, do they have this? Are we learning mindfulness meditation? Are we learning about the current research? Are we learning about some of these different aspects that we talk about in the guidelines? And it's also helpful. I think Europe has done a little bit better job at this than even us in the United States about coming up with really good guidelines, because their healthcare system actually covers probably a little bit more based on whether a person has been certified or meets a lot of practice guidelines that European professionals have developed. And so we've kind of looked at those as a model as well when we've come up with ours. So we've done a lot of research on why we're doing what we're doing.
Exactly. So it's not just that the TCME with these guidelines is acting like the police department, saying who's right and who's wrong. That's not at all the intention. Is that correct?
That's very correct. Yes, absolutely. And then if there are, professionals that are wanting to teach like a webinar, or not a webinar, I'm sorry, a workshop, or let's say they want to teach some kind of mindful eating exercise in their private practice. Let's say you're a dietitian or a nutritionist or a psychologist and you want to teach a mindful eating technique. These guidelines aren't exactly what you would need to be looking for, but you need to be guided. I think first of all, we need to really be guided by our own mindfulness practice. So no matter what professional degree you have or certificate you have to do, let's say, everything from health coaching to psychology, that doesn't qualify you to teach mindful eating techniques even. You have to really be grounded in your own mindfulness practice so that you can understand over a period of time, so that you can understand how to use mindfulness to overcome the difficulties and the challenges that arise through mindful eating, doing mindful eating techniques. This is not just about, right? I hope everybody knows that. It's not just about eating. It's really about how you interact and befriend your entire life, right? Your body and your food and your life. It all comes into the room when you're really working with mindful eating.
And that was just going to be my final question. Like, we have mentioned in different parts in our website and also through different webinars the importance of having an ongoing personal mindfulness practice. And of course, this is also stated in the guidelines, because as you said, it's not just about teaching an exercise. Mindful eating is not another technique, right? We don't want it to turn into one more recipe to teach people, but actually is grounded and it's a mindfulness-based intervention. So therefore, the importance that we all know why it is important, sorry for repeating that, but why is it so relevant that we have our own mindfulness practice? Is that correct?
Right, because mindfulness is really popular these days. Exactly. Mindfulness is everywhere, and so to jump on the mindfulness, well, not everybody, but a lot of people are anxious to jump on the mindfulness bandwagon, which is great, but realize this is not superficial technique. It is really a technique that requires development over a period of time, and it's exciting. I mean, I hope that people will get excited about the fact that it's become so popular and so available to so many people, because the benefits that you can get from a long-term practice are immeasurable and priceless. And so please, everyone, avail yourself to them.
Thank you so much. Is there any other thing, Lynn, that you would like to say about the good practice guidelines? I think you clearly defined why were they developed, the 3 different types of guidelines. You also mentioned that they're in our website, and the importance of the mindfulness practice. Is there any other thing that you would like to add?
Well, I just think it's exciting that we're here and we're doing this, and that we've gotten to the point where we needed guidelines, which shows the increase in interest and the hunger, really, for this practice, and for these skills that can relieve suffering of all kinds. So yeah, it's just really exciting.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your time and for your presence and for all what you do and your wonderful book, The Mindfulness-Based Eating Solution.
So you all can refer to the good practice guidelines on the website TCME in case you don't have them yet or you're not familiar with them yet. Well, we're getting to the end of this webinar today. We hope you enjoyed the different interviews and getting to know the TCME board members and the perspectives on mindful eating. If you have any questions regarding this webinar or any of the interviews, feel free to write to us at info@tcme.org, and we will, if it's not for us, we will address it to whoever you want us to address it to. And don't forget that we will meet again today at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. For more interviews, we'll have Sandra, we'll have Marsha again, who will be telling us where we're heading with TCME. We have as well Migret Fletcher. She was the co-founder of TCME. So thank you, everybody, and we hope to see you this afternoon if you can. Anything to add, Cinzia?
Yes, just wanted to say thanks again, and we run this day obviously based on the efforts of our volunteers, including ourselves, and if you feel like donating something to support the center, that would be very much appreciated. Thanks again, and have a lovely rest of the day. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for being here.
Bye.